Welcome, and thank you for joining me for today's little update at the end of the day. Pretty nice going into the middle point of the week, coming down into the weekly expected move, going down towards the monthly. So we have to get into those shorter time frames. Going to give you guys a little bit of those daily expected moves, but we're also going to have to do this a little quickly. I don't have the most time today, so I'm going to jump right into things on this daily chart and talk about something that I overall posted over to Patreon, but I wanted to talk about it in full context with a video format right now. And this is just to discuss decision making in general. As it goes from a decision making standpoint, we would say that this is overall a bearish look, right? We do have that coming down below the 5-day moving average, and we're rolling below all of those moving averages. A roll here is not a good sign. Now, that being said, you could treat all of these things and say, hey, these lines in here are telling me that this is really starting to shift to the downside. We overall might even have a downward trend. So trend and things like that for the short term might be pointing in that direction. But as far as decision making for me, right, the important part is when am I buying? When am I selling? What am I buying? What am I selling? Those kinds of things. But a big portion of that, if you're going to do options, will be timing. You will have to time these things out and look at something and say, do I need to be patient, or do I think that this is a good opportunity? As of right now, we want to use some of those tools to help explain that to you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off all of these. We're going to turn off the 5-day. We're going to have this thing blank and just look at this from the perspective of the weekly expected move. Okay, we're going to look at this from the perspective of the weekly expected moves and the monthly expected moves. We'll take this into consideration. So if you don't know, this is a 68% zone for the entire month. This tells us what, as far as the month goes, this tells us that this is our 68% zone that was calculated by the options market. We can see that during this month, about halfway through, we have ended up at the bottom side of that zone, where as we get towards it, these are levels that act like magnets, but they will be able to be used as support. So if I'm going down to this level and I have 2 weeks left in the month, then I would say, okay, well, what's the look at this level? Well, we just came down into a low as I approach that monthly expected move. So is this going to be at a low a great time to bet on a stock market crash, or is it more likely that market makers would make you feel good by giving some kind of bounce from this level, using it as support, and then seeing that next move down? Well, this would be the correct answer. It's not going to work every time, but most of the time you will see this level hold as support. How do we know that? Because it's 68% of the time and 32% of the time we do close outside of it. We go into this very much so in detail in a lot of our material down there. We talk about these things on Patreon. So as from the monthly expected move perspective, me as a trader who's used monthly expected moves for a long time, I don't even look for short positions when something gets to a bottom side monthly expected move. The only time that I will look for that short position is if we have seen a bounce around that level and we are about to see the next roll, because that is where you can see a crash-like moment. But normally the first time you tag these levels, you will see some kind of support, or in the opposite direction, some kind of resistance. But the easiest way to look at this is how we're going to describe it again to you right now, talking about decision-making based on this week, right? This was based on the month of November. Now let's talk about this week. Well, in the first 2 trading sessions, we have come down outside of our 68% zone for the week, and we've already seen a bounce. So we've already discussed this. It's very likely to bounce, right? You have a higher percentage to bounce from those levels and to close the week back in these levels than you are to plummet through the floor. So as you're betting on stock market crash and the market makers see that everyone's betting on stock market crash, this is going to be a highly probable level to bounce from. These are just a couple of things to help you understand how these things can help you and guide you to make better decisions. This tells us that if I'm looking for some kind of roll, I might want to be looking on that 2-hour chart for the 2-hour to come up to these levels and then roll that move, confirm back to the downside using all of my other skills. But there is something else here that we can even utilize, and I don't pull them up very often, but I do flip them on certain times where they come into some level of importance. We do see that we have touched the bottom of the Bollinger. Well, if we look throughout this entire move, we did not touch bottom Bollinger very often, but you notice we get to bottom Bollinger, you can ride that. You'll normally see tags to that 5-day moving average, meaning as you get to bottom Bollinger, it's not the best right away, especially as you come outside of it, to take that position, but instead look for that moment to the upside. So now that we have touched on a lot of these type of things, I just wanted to put that out there as kind of a not necessarily a lesson, but just as something to think about as far as decision making and how you can use some of the tools that we do show off here in the chart. So as it stands, what are we trying to figure out? We're trying to figure out if this daily is truly going negative right here, if the weekly is going to confirm in the downward trajectory here in positive territory for some kind of correction. We're trying to figure out, is the daily going to be able to withstand that, or are we going to head to the downside? Well, as it stands, we see that we have a huge amount of implied volatility for tomorrow. Now that makes sense. We have NVIDIA earnings coming up tomorrow. That's going to be a big deal. We just got the FOMC minutes, and we're going into things like non-farm payrolls and unemployment, two pieces of job data that people are really going to pay attention to. So you might need a 68% zone for tomorrow, and I highly suggest you get these on your chart since they are big. You do see 673.77 to the upside. You see 651.49 to the downside. As I see that we have a large move priced in here, I think it's a little bit rare that we will see a second standard deviation unless NVIDIA earnings is just absolutely insane and the data in the morning backs it up. But as of right now, the 2-hour MACD would suggest watching for the 2-hour to react up. And that's why I kind of gave this line in here, because what did we just say when we were reviewing stuff on the daily chart, kind of showing off decision making? Well, we're very likely to bounce from this level, right? And we do actually see potential reversal signals at this point. But treating it as just one indicator at a time, the MACD is suggesting that we can see a reaction up, but you might want to watch for a roll to see something ugly going into the end of the week or going into early next week. This means that the MACD is overall saying we are very likely to make a lower high. Now, the problem with that at this point is that the RSI is showing that divergence. And this is showing in the futures very well. We actually showed that off on Patreon. But so if we were to get confirmation, which the RSI was able to get confirmation, the price action was able to get confirmation, the MACD is lagging behind, but the RSI is suggesting that we have an opportunity here, that the bulls have a chance right now. This is why we've been talking about it for a couple of days as it's been building in this area. And then we dropped down to lower. We said it wasn't violated. So we're still watching. Can this market come back? It's been very resilient. We still haven't taken out the critical macro levels at this point. Now we have taken out my 657, so this is kind of getting a little scary here, but you do see that 2-hour divergence, which suggests, hey, I should watch out for what? I think if this trend breaks, I think we're very likely to see upside, but I do believe that we could run into a trap at the end of the year. We'll get into it as it stands. So I just wanted to put that out there. You do have a 2-hour divergence down here on the RSI. It's not the best signal in the world. That's why I'm not risking a ton of money behind it. But at the same time, I have bought calls again, scaled into a position ever since these moments right in here. I have scaled into a position to be right about in this area. So as of right now, I'm looking for the upside play. But if I do see that continued rolling, then that's going to be a big problem. So I am watching the 30-minute chart. You guys thought I was going to be all bullish, all bullish, all bullish. I do think that there are some contrarian bull signals here to watch out for if you are extremely bearish or expecting some kind of stock market crash. Pretty much, if we're going to see a crash, you got to see more of the same. You need to see rolls that get you outside of these moves to see something crazy. So this is a risky area. Therefore, if we do see this 30-minute roll to the downside, right, we actually see that confirm on the MACD, that would say we're going to test this low, go make a new one, and that's where your daily expected move of 651.49 will come in. So as of right now, you're getting roll after roll after roll, so this is very easy to the bull side. You look for those bounces, right? We saw this bounce, right? We look for those bounces. We look for when it rolls. We look for those rolls. We look for the break of those levels, and then we come to the downside, the weekly expected move, great target, right? We actually mentioned this in a YouTube video like a day or so ago. So that's very, very nice. But as of right now, we're testing that weekly expected moves. We're sitting around in this area. Are we going to curl to the upside? Is the 2-hour going to curl up, suggesting we're going to go try to test this trend line, maybe even go to make those new highs because of that divergence? Or are we going to roll? Or is the 30-minute chart going to roll right now? We're going to end up at that monthly move, maybe even at the daily expected move tomorrow. That looks like what's in store for the SPY. Let's do it a little backwards for the Qs. Let's do the 30-minute chart first. So as of right now, we have tried to make a rejection higher low for the 30-minute. That is telling us, okay, we need to get going. So it's good NVIDIA's doing those things, right? NVIDIA's helping it out. I don't think they've even had their call yet as far as finishing up this video goes, but they have reported their numbers. If you want, we can take a quick peek at NVIDIA, and I'll give you guys a critical level that I've calculated for NVIDIA for this week. Okay, I'll give it to you guys at the end of this video. Won't go too in depth with it because earnings is overall 50-50 flip, but I did see the chart, and we'll go over that in a moment. The Qs, if the 30-minute rolls down here, where is it? Negative territory. So if this fails at some point, you'd be looking for weekly expected move. You'd be looking for daily expected move tags. So that's pretty much the bearish scenario there. You do see from the 30-minute that it was able to hold some form of divergence at this low on the RSI, which gives you the hint that the 2-hour can curl up. 2 hours isn't curled up yet. You're very flat though, but you can see here, right? I'll hold my mouse. I'll try my best not to cheat at all. It's almost identical. It's really, really flat here for the 2-hour MACD for the Qs. Has not confirmed, but you do see that nice significant little divergence there for the Qs on the 2-hour chart for the RSI. The critical thing here is, where is this happening? And this is why I really wanted to talk about decision making simply and then go in depth with it for the Qs right here. If I am down by the monthly expected move, not towards the end of the month, like not in the last 3 to 4 days, but instead just about halfway through the month, we have a lot of time to do what? To bounce from these levels, to come back into these type of areas, to land in this zone. So I don't want to be taking big bets as we just got to this level that there's going to be more, right? Unless I really, really see data or really, really see a reason for a stock market crash, which I genuinely do not with the signals that we're seeing here because of these reasons. You are down at the monthly move. This is where we're going to go into it a little more. You have a flat divergence for your MACD. I'll even blow it up. We'll really see here. That's so tight there, but it's barely not there. I'm going to almost say it, but I will say this. The RSI is giving you the divergence, and that has confirmed. So if I'm bearish here, I am blatantly going against the signals. So if this goes wrong for me, if I'm really bearish and I opened up put positions here, not talking about up here, down here, if I open up those put positions down here, that's going to be on me because this signal went wrong and I'm not reacting, right? So I have to take accountability for my trading. I did not do that. I instead did the opposite. I am buying calls at these levels because you're down at the bottom side of my 68% zone. You're making what? A reversal signal at that level. This is something that I talk about thoroughly all the time. This is something I really, really like to do for like crazy good things, right? Some good trades as far as monthly perspective goes. This is not the area I want to be at in those positions. I especially don't want to be adding a put position when I do have a flat, almost flat there for the MACD, but we'll focus on the RSI. I see a divergence on the RSI. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh yeah, the daily can't turn up, we have to crash. No, fear and greed is still at those really, really extreme fear levels. Everyone thinks there's a stock market crash coming, and I see a 2-hour divergence by the monthly downward expected move. It is very, very likely that we're going to see a reversal here is what I'm getting at, or at least some kind of attempt to potentially see if we can break through something critical, if we can break through something a bit critical here. Maybe we need to test these levels and see one more roll before we are able to say that there is some kind of stock market crash. So some key levels for you to watch for tomorrow. If the 2 hour is able to confirm up with this bar, you would say that's going to ride out to about 613.58 for the Qs tomorrow. 586.16 to the downside. If we do see that 30-minute roll, that's something you can look at as of right now. So for the Qs, the reason that we're seriously watching this, and the reason that I think the Qs are setting up a 2-hour divergence here is because it's going to end up turning up. People are going to be very surprised. And as the MACD is still by that center line for the daily chart and did not have divergence on the MACD and RSI at the same time, but instead gave you a flat only on the RSI, we would see maybe one more curl up to attempt to give us a lower high, or even go to new all-time highs. So we'll be watching out for that. Let's go over volatility for a brief moment. Volatility is your one signal. Volatility is truly your one signal that says, we're going to be going to the sky. But we are at the most extreme fear levels we have seen in a long time. I really want to go back to this. Maybe I'll do this for this weekend's video. Go back to this level and see what we are at as far as fear and greed goes, because we are at a skyrocketing level of extreme fear, and we have pulled back by about 4.7%. We are at a skyrocket level. I mean, look at this move overall, from these low levels, from the cross ups, from the rejection here off the 50, we see a peak of 50%. And I know it says 12 days, but that's like 4 trading sessions. That's an extreme amount of fear coming in, but it's not really as fearful as you think, according to volatility, right? We're in those extreme fear levels. But this overall just looks like potential, like as far as it goes, it seems like retail is really betting on a crash. A lot of the big players are potentially hedging just in case, but we're not actually seeing volatility pop off to the point where when I said volatility pop, I'm saying we're going to go to 36.11. That's what I think. And as of right now, what do I see? I see this divergence on the RSI. So I see a divergence on the RSI while at the same time seeing a divergence on the SPY that's saying I'm going to go up while volatility is saying I'm going to go down. And that being said, we got to talk about this thing to both sides. That means what? If this divergence is going to play out, then you are going to see volatility plummet here. You most likely are going to see that completely plummet down below this low, completely wipe out that level. Then we might see a little reaction in volatility before we're able to subside down to 1504. That is the overall way that volatility breaks down here with these signals. The only tricky part is we don't have it on the MACD at the same time, meaning volatility can coil up in this area. And if it makes a new higher low, well, then that would most likely be the time that we would see volatility pop off. So knowing just those two simple things there as far as it goes. Well, if the 2 hour backs off and curls up, we are likely to see another wave of volatility. But if the 2 hour completely collapses here and breaks through this low, then we could see a pullback for the market. So I'm going to go over these two scenarios because we have a lot of lines drawn up, but we're going to go over two scenarios right now over with the SPY. The SPY would state this. So if volatility is going to get that pullback that then goes to the upside again, and we see a big wave of volatility, that means we could see something like this, and then we actually drop to the downside again, and we see that potential big wave of volatility. We maybe even break through these moves, see something crazy. That would be bad. But either way, it says, yeah, we're very likely to bounce here a little bit. The other scenario that we talked about, let's delete that one off. So that is the higher low scenario for volatility. The other one was if volatility is going to completely break down here. If volatility, which is kind of shaped like this right now, is going to break that low and then make that right shoulder that could have been and start that downtrend. Well, if volatility is going to do this, then we would see a big move potentially from the SPY to at least take out this level. But really, you would like to see it break through this little trend here between those highs, then pull back in. People get really, really bearish. And then we just see it pop to the upside and we end up heading to the upside. So that's the two ways I really see volatility playing out here. Usually it doesn't play out exactly how I draw it up. Sometimes it does. Actually pretty well it does, but a lot of the time it rhymes, okay? So we're really watching this as of right now. We're trying to see what's going on here. I would be very, very cautious betting on stock market crash when you are seeing divergences from the SPY, when you are seeing 2 hour divergences down by the monthly expected move on the MACD and RSI, potentially the MACD for the Qs, and you are seeing a 2 hour RSI divergence here from the volatility in the opposite direction, telling you that a lot of things in the market right now, the momentum to the downside is not very good. So if you want to see a crash, well, then you potentially have to get very bad news from NVIDIA. You have to get very bad news from the data in the morning. But either way, it tells us that we are very likely to bounce from these levels and then maybe see a roll if things are going to get bad. But with reversal signals below us, hey, just watch out just in case this thing blows off all of a sudden. And then we see some pullbacks that lead to new highs. So I really wanted to go in depth with this today. I had to do it very time crunch, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video, leaving a like and joining us if you haven't subscribed already. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Wasn't able to make a Patreon video today, but we will be looking at tomorrow. Trying to put aside some time as I'm trying to give my wife a few breaks. She's in the third trimester now, guys. It's getting a little rough. Have a good one, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your night. All right. Peace out.